So we're turnkeying full building thermostats. We're turnkeying smart appliances. And we're also turnkeying EV charging for buildings. Multifamily buildings right now are going through a panic attack right now of of providing parking spaces with EV chargers because people are walking up the block to the next building if they find out that you don't have enough.
Welcome back to the CleanTechies podcast, where we interview climate tech founders and VCs to discuss all things building and investing to solve the biggest challenge of our generation, climate change. Today we are speaking with Jeff Hendler, the co-founder and CEO of Logical Buildings. A lot of New Yorkers will recognize them by their program Grid Rewards. They rolled this out big time last year and it was plastered on every subway ad board. What they are is a general platform that helps with energy efficiency in buildings. They do a few other things as well, but this is their main focus for both residential and commercial buildings. Jeff has a really mixed background and was able to do a great job explaining how Grid Rewards works in conjunction with utilities, and he explained kind of his story from Wall Street to the utilities to then building this smart buildings company. When you finish, let us know what your favorite takeaway is, and without any further delay, enjoy the episode. All right, welcome to the show, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Silas. Looking forward to our
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. I'm super glad to have you. I hope you are staying cool in this New York heat. Maybe you've turned your AC off as we are going through, or before we already passed the peak energy usage, right? Because we're recording this
Yeah,
at like 6:30.
yeah, we're definitely on the downtrend for the day.
Very nice, very nice. Well, we'll get into that. So I guess let's just start off by give us a quick introduction to yourself and to who you are.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Hendler. I'm a co-founder, CEO of Logical Buildings. We're a climate tech platform serving the built world, facilitating energy transition to electrify, decarbonize your building footprint, and do it in a way that you can earn a return on your footprint, where you are, where you live, if you own a building, which we'll describe in more detail.
Very nice. And how did you end up getting into this space in general? Like, because a lot of people have a certain type of journey that kind of leads them to this space. I don't think a lot of kids think, oh, I want to be in the energy efficiency space when I grow up. Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, great question. I started on Wall Street, working for a big investment bank that focused on utilities and risk management of commodities in the utility space, power and gas assets from production, distribution, and worked for a utility as well, post the Wall Street experience as the energy markets deregulated on a wholesale level as the monopolies, transformed into generation plants that had a certain type of settlement system that's transparent, and utility became more of a distributor, not the producer of energy. And then that actually evolved into the retail space where you could actually choose your supplier for electric and gas. And I co-founded a retail energy company in 2004 called IDT Energy. And in 2011, we went public on New York Stock Exchange as Genie Energy. And that experience of understanding the full value chain of how you create energy, how you distribute it, how utilities actually price it, gave me a unique perspective of the inefficiencies of the market. People joke around that if you would ask, like, the father of telecommunications, Alexander Bell, if he came back today, he would not recognize, the telco market, with Apple and Samsung and the way we communicate today. But if Thomas Edison came back, he hasn't missed a beat. It's pretty much the same. So the electric industry today is going through quite a transformation to make the products and services that you take for granted in telecommunications just as accessible. And that's a journey I've been on in my career, and I found a unique position of how I could facilitate that change in the built market.
Hey there. Quick break to remind any founders or VCs listening, if you are looking for deal flow, seeking to raise funding, looking for partners to help service your needs, or perhaps you're looking for corporate investment partners, feel free to reach out to us through our Slack channel, which can be found in the description. Because we meet a lot of people in this space, we set aside time each week to make introductions to the various people that we encounter. This is something we do free of charge in order to help these incredible companies solving climate change to scale. Looking forward to hearing from you in the Slack channel. Very nice. So I guess from going public, with you said it was called Genie Energy at the time. Then once you went public, how did you end up getting into building this company?
Yeah.
Because
So
that is still pretty different from what you were doing
yeah.
before.
So I, in that journey of retail energy, and understanding the details of how energy is priced and the economics behind it, I saw right away something really interesting. That is, the utilities really didn't know how much energy you're using at a given time. They made assumptions based on a monthly profile. They would take a meter read. They still do. Many do this till today. They'll take a meter read at the beginning of the month, end of the month, subtract, and you have, like, say, 1,000 kilowatt hours. How Silas used those 1,000 kilowatt hours, they have no idea, because the meter, the ruler, that's measuring that, didn't have that granularity. On the flip side, that same utility was being charged from a wholesale grid based down to the hour, even down to 5 minutes, how much electricity passed through that home. And somehow they had to bridge that gap of what they estimated you were using and what they actually had to pay to the wholesale grid and make a business out of that. And it's like, wow, that's really inefficient. Why can't the end user actually know what they're using at the time they're using it, and then be charged accordingly? And that would actually give them an incentive to make more intelligent decisions of how they use their energy, because electricity is truly priced down to the hour. So how do I bridge that gap? And, concurrent to asking that question, many utilities were embarking on a path of putting in smart meters in their utility districts, which would enable them to provide that information down to the consumer, that granularity, something called interval data that the digital meters now is able to provide. In 2012, Barack Obama signed an executive order called Green Button, which basically was a mandate to utilities that they need to make their data accessible to end users at the press of a button. That's all really much the executive order said. But since then, certain protocols and standards have been put into place by the Department of Energy, and NIST, which is like the National Industry Standards of Technology, NASB, which is the North American Energy Standards Board, that sets protocols for utilities to make that information available to third-party app developers, which we are. As Logical Building is also an app developer, and we're taking that AMI data and now making it actionable and usable by end users, so they can now bridge that gap of when they actually use their energy, how much they're using, and what it costs at that time. And even better, we're able to calculate what the carbon content of that energy is at that time. And that gives a signal, an educational piece of value as well, not just economical, to an end user to make intelligent decisions of how they use their energy. Because they'll know, hey, it's more expensive now, or it's more carbon intensive now. Or we could give them some predictive analysis and say, hey, in the next hour or two, it's gonna be much more expensive. Or, now's a good time to use energy because of the carbon content is low. Later it's gonna be high. This type of information, making that transparent and available, is of incredible import to a consumer to make more intelligent decisions that has not just an economic impact, but an environmental impact in their surroundings.
Hey there. Are you building a climate tech business and looking for very specialized talent? Consider reaching out to our sponsors, NextWave Partners. NextWave are experts in talent acquisition, recruitment, and retention across the climate tech, renewables, and ESG spaces globally. So if your team is growing or you're looking to make a career change yourself, feel free to reach out to NextWave at next-wavepartners.com or reach out to one of their consultants directly via their LinkedIn page. Yeah, that's interesting. I think I just want to say one thing. I think I appreciate the way you've made it extremely simple to understand the history of how this came about, because it's something I usually I do read, but I tend to be a little bit lazy with doing deep research on how these things come about. So just simple executive order that can allow this data to be published. And then now people who are, I guess, maybe some people will take this offensively, but utilities aren't exactly necessarily the most innovative place usually.
No, no.
So usually you're gonna want to make the things available so that the innovative people can go and do something with it, right, and make an
Yeah.
impact.
And my since my background, like I started on like, on a Wall Street end, but then I did work for utility. So I did gain respect for the utility in the sense of, hey, they have a social good, they have a responsibility for resiliency, for reliability, and they have to balance that with providing market choices as well. When I went out back into the like non-regulated world, and as a founder of IDT, co-founder of IDT Energy, yeah, I still maintain that respect for the utility of being, hey, they're a valuable stakeholder and partner in the process, and providing them the necessary feedback of how they can be more nimble and more effective in what they do, makes their business that much more valuable and successful too. And we've always kept that mentality, and we're very much engaged in a positive way with utilities, with regulatory authorities. It's an evolution of policy and integration of technology. So I saw an opportunity to go out on my own and you know partner with a real estate developer who really is like the customer for what we do, to test the theory of the case. And that is, I had a portfolio of buildings, and I was able to empower them with real-time data that was actionable. We put that in the hands of like property managers. And then today we're able to put that in the hands of residents themselves and retail tenants. You know, shouldn't that make an effect? Shouldn't have a positive impact on their behavior, without automation, just having the information alone? And the theory of the case became practical. We became a case study. We proved it. And having that intel of an owner developer and seeing where the pain points were in their buildings, and specifically started in multifamily buildings, which is like a really interesting space to start. One, actually, that's where most of the energy is in a metropolitan market. It's not in office buildings. It's in multifamily buildings, because people not only live there. There's a lot of common area, utilization of energy. There's elevators, there's ventilation, there's water pumps, there's amenity spaces. And today, because of the COVID effect and hybrid working, people are not only living there, but they're actually working there too, half time, and sometimes full time remotely. So there's a lot of energy being utilized. And it's also somewhat of a miniature city, because you also, in multifamily buildings, you have at the street level, there's a coffee shop, there might be a pharmacy, it might be a grocery store, there might be there's a fitness center, there's a parking garage. Now we're talking about electric vehicles are starting to come in. So we were able to expose ourselves to solve a lot of necessary problems and challenges that exist in that type of built environment that is interconnected between common area, which is typical of commercial buildings, residential, and mixed use, and put us in a position to learn a lot, to invest and implement technologies for those different types of asset classes in the built world. And that's really positioned us for success in the greater built market. As the past couple of years, there's been ESG initiatives, environmental social governance, to decarbonize your building, which is voluntary. But there's also been, compliance, like in New York City of Local Law 97, where there's actual penalties for not taking action that start in 2024. And you have a mixture of these types of voluntary or financial penalties, or benchmarking, where you have the public and get a letter grade, so there's some type of public shaming if you get a D on your building if you're not that efficient. That is happening throughout the country. And it puts our business, what we do, literally in the nexus of solving a lot of these issues of first measure and verifying, like what's my baseline, like what is my built space, what is it consuming, what is it the carbon content, and then from there, what can I do to change that? What are the available technologies that I could implement, be prescriptive based on my data, based on my lifestyle, that are going to be, have the most impact at the least cost. And, we solve those problems. I could use many examples. So you take a multifamily building, and, the lowest, hanging fruit is load controls, the thermostats. And that's where you're controlling electric, or gas, and even if you go to electrification, it means more electric, to manage. And in most multifamily buildings are manual controls. They're set and forget. And many of the buildings are starting to put in Wi-Fi or some type of mesh network, one as an amenity for the residents that live there, because they want to have a connected lifestyle. Well, if they're making that investment in Wi-Fi, why not, support your thermostats on an enterprise control network as well? And therefore, you could, no matter 24/7, no matter where you are, enable your residents, your retail tenants, and in the common areas for the property managers to be that much more impactful and reactive or proactive in managing their set points, and see immediate results,
Mm-hmm.
efficiency. Um, that's like one of the first like easy layup things to do in a building, is to enable that load control. The other thing that does is enable the building to participate in grid services. There's many states like New York, California, Texas, that, if you are able to measure and verify time of use management of your load, they'll pay you for it. So when there's, like what you had mentioned earlier, like, hey, at this time of day, loads are coming off. It's we're going into the evening. Well, in the middle of the afternoon, there could be constraints in the grid, and the utility will put out a Mayday signal. Hey, we need less. We need demand side resources. We need buildings to use less. We'll pay you to use less, and as an incentive, and that works. And providing that messaging to end users, to buildings and their residents, has quite a dramatic impact in actually providing resiliency and
Mm-hmm.
reliability to the grid. And those programs are becoming more prevalent. And you see them in
Mm-hmm.
Texas and California, throughout the Northeast, for residents as well. And that's been a big game changer. Now,
Yeah.
to make that all work, you need to have like a smart meter, an AMI meter. You need to be able to integrate that with IoT. You need to be able to communicate that. You need some good connectivity like Wi-Fi to make it much better.
Mm-hmm.
But the environment's going in that direction to enable
Mm-hmm.
us to be really successful.
Hey there, thanks for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, it's likely that you're enjoying the show, so I wanted to ask your help. If you're enjoying it, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts and share with somebody in the same industry who might find this interesting. And if you're interested in getting summaries of these episodes, go subscribe to our newsletter that comes out on LinkedIn and Substack. Links can be found in the description. Thanks for your help in growing the reach of this show. Yeah, I guess so. Just to make sure the audience understands how that last part works, right? Paying people to basically shut off their energy, essentially, to make it very simple. And you correct me if I got this wrong, but when there is a large demand, in the afternoon, perhaps most people are turning on power or different usages going up. The grid may not have enough power, and they want to avoid a blackout, so they ask people, "Hey, we'll pay you, in some form to just basically tone down how much you're using, right? Don't pull as much, so that way we can achieve this without a blackout." Is that correct?
Yeah, it's totally correct. And it's based on, the measuring the energy itself, the kilowatts.
And how do they? My big question is, how do they understand? And maybe you can shed some light here. How Who is actually going to get rewarded, right? Because like that's what I was wondering. It's like, oh man, I'm just like basically one AC unit, right? Like, how am I going to get my check at the end of the summer, and how are they going to know that I actually did anything about it? That's what I was wondering about. Because I'm
Sure.
one person in a large building that is not, our heat usage is all connected. It's the old pipes that if you touch it, you're going to cook an egg on it, those kind of things, right? So I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious how that works.
Yeah. So the key is to follow the meter. Now, whose account is it? So if you're a resident and your apartment's directly metered or home, well, then you're eligible to get a direct benefit from the grid for making those choices and reducing your load. Now, that provides the eligibility? You need to have that AMI meter. AMI means automated meter infrastructure, a smart meter that the utility already put in. So if you're in Con Ed, as an example, you already have that meter. They put it in, and so now it's a matter of, okay, how do I sign up for the service? Who provides that service? So Con Ed has a program, smart usage program, that they have registered aggregators. Logical Building is one of those registered direct market participants in the Con Ed program. Some of those aggregators only provide services to commercial buildings. Some of them provide only to residential. Some do both. We do all the above. Um, we were the first to come out with a residential capability, because we were already in multifamily buildings for a number of years, and we were following Con Ed as they were putting in these meters. And kudos to Con Ed that they opened the market up. They lowered the eligibility standard to 10 watts, meaning that if you could reduce 10 watts, that's like the minimum amount. We could measure 10 watts, a tenth of a kilowatt, and that's the granularity of these smart meters. Um, you can participate in the program through an aggregator. So what that meant was that anyone, I mean, if you have a light bulb, you turn off the light and anything behind the meter. Like, so it's not just like your HVAC, it's anything that you're using, your coffee maker, your washing machine, your refrigerator, your electric oven, dryer, if you have EV charging, if you have a pool pump, if you have a water heater, all of those appliances, all those, you know, all that type of equipment that's creating electric load is going to get captured by the meter. And if you reduce that, you're going to get compensated. So knowing that, we actually approached Samsung and their smart things division that has smart, IoT, and said, look, I know you're working on smart refrigerators and dishwashers and ovens and having a smart home. We should pair up on this, because if you're able to take your smart things ecosystem and receive a signal from us as the aggregator through our program called Grid Rewards, and we integrate that into your smart things app, then your refrigerator will have a payback mechanism. Your refrigerator will start cycling less when you get our signal, which is pain free. Nobody knows when it's cycling less, but you're using less electricity, and that's been really valuable. So they just rolled that out literally about 6 weeks ago, after we've completed the integrations. That's live with Samsung Smart Things. If you're in Con Ed and you have Samsung Smart Things, your entire home, not just your thermostat, now can provide value to you as you know the owner of that, and it's a tremendous value. And we only see that getting better, and that puts us in a position to talk to multifamily owners and say, well, we know every year about 10% of your appliances are being swapped out. They hit their life. They've been there for 15 years in your apartment building. You need to get new appliances. You should get connected appliances that can talk to the grid, because if your residents who are living there, they can reap the reward of having better interactivity with the grid through their meter at Con Ed, which most of the apartment houses in New York are directly metered. That's a huge value. And with Local 97, the owner's getting scored on the residential use anyhow. So there used to be this split incentive where
Mhm.
owners want to invest in the residential space because, like, well, they're just paying their bill to Con Ed. I don't really care. Well, now they do care, because the energy use is converted to carbon, and based on the amount of carbon, they can be penalized financially.
Mhm.
So it's aligned interests with ownership and their tenants' residents to provide the residents with much more energy efficient equipment, whether it's thermostats, whether it's kitchen appliances as well, and that's a game changer.
So uh,
Market.
I want to just make sure I understand this correctly. So the resident is the one who, even though I rent, I don't own, I still get the rewards, but the building owner, if they do not make it possible for me to get the rewards, they can get penalized. So they have a downside and we have an upside. Is that correct?
That is correct. As the owner from a carbon compliance point of view, it's on the owner of the building. Everything block and lot. That's how that law, the Climate Mobilization Act, which is now Local 97, was codified. The owner is responsible for every inch of space that they lease out from a carbon compliance. So it's in their interest to incentivize anyone that they lease their space out to use less energy. Now, you as the person living in that space and as the account holder of that meter, you reap all the benefits of uh, demand response, grid service. Those payments go to the account holder of the meter. You also get the value of, hey, you're paying a bill for your space. You definitely want to pay less. So having smarter appliances, more efficient appliances are going to help lower your bill as well. And then as a consumer, you would just like to know, like, hey, when I'm using energy in my space, I would like to know when carbon is more intense. There is time of use carbon. Most people don't even realize that. They had no idea that there's certain hours of the day that are high carbon, certain hours of the day that are low carbon, certain hours of the day that we're using more renewables. Wouldn't you want to know that when I'm using energy in my home, I'm using the most renewable energy that's available right now? That's coming either from hydro or from wind or from solar, not coming from the dirty fossil fuel plants. And on really hot summer days, obviously, as demand increases, we're becoming more reliable on the dirty fossil fuel plants, and we're able to provide guidance on that to our end users, and they could track how much carbon they're saving by using less energy during those hours. And then when the grid calls an event and says, hey, it's really, really tight, we don't have enough capacity, we want to avoid a blackout, you know, between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m., whatever window that networks in, then our homeowners, apartment folks, they earn money directly from the grid for taking those
Mhm.
actions. And that's like a great way to solve this issue of making it a community active type of dynamic where you could be a climate community leader. You could be an influencer amongst your peers by telling them, hey, I took action at this time. I actually use less carbon. I save money. Guess what? I even got paid for using less energy, for making an environmental impact. And that's the message that we're also empowering property owners to, you know, broadcast to their tenants and residents that, hey,
Mhm.
you building that have these smart meters, there is this program, our program Grid Rewards, that it doesn't cost anything. It's a free download, and it only gives you insights on what you're using and how to use it to lower your cost and earn money. It's kind of like really straightforward stuff.
Yeah. So that's I really appreciate this kind of backstory. This is helpful to understand and how everything works. I want to shift a little bit more to the business side. I have a question around this is a pretty deep way to jump into it, but if the utilities are required by law now to make available the information for third-party developers like logical buildings, wouldn't that cause a lot of people to rush into the space to try to build a similar type of service? And if
Sure.
so,
Yeah.
then what is your kind of take on how logical buildings has done? Because to my knowledge, I've not actually heard of many other ones in New York. How do you build a moat? How do you succeed in that market of third party developers that might rush into it? Like what is the kind of secret sauce that you've done to try to really make that
Sure. Yeah.
win the
Yeah.
market?
Yeah. And it's a great question. I mean, we were fortunate because we came into the market. We Before there were AMI meters, right? Before there were smart meters, we actually went to Con Ed and said for a multifamily building, can you put a smart meter in? They said, well, you have to pay for it. And I said, well, our building owner will pay for it because they really want to know what they're using. And they're like, well, it's like having a colonoscopy for your building to really see everything they're using. I said, absolutely, that's what they want. And they'll pay for that. And we did. So we had a head start, on, so to speak, on the competition of being in the buildings, in the common areas. So, we've grown our business with portfolios. The multifamily space is a difficult space because it's, people who rent are transient, right? They're only there. Like, so if you're starting a business, why would you want to like spend your marketing dollars, your customer acquisition costs on a tiny load of an apartment that's going to turn over in maybe a year or two, right? So that's like an automatic, like, the only way to make that actually work is that you establish a relationship with the building, the ownership, and to do that, you have to really start investing time in the corporate entity that owns that building, because they own many buildings. So we started there. That was a tough place to begin. Um, yeah, so that's somewhat of a barrier to entry, is um, the complexity of multifamily ownership. You have equity owners, you have property managers that might not be the same. You might have asset owners, like a Prudential or Invesco, that they own a building, but they're not a management company. So they bring a third party management company. So now you're dealing with two chefs in the kitchen, so to speak. And you have, a transient base of residents and tenants. So it's somewhat complex, type of, that asset class to go to. And that's why most prop tech, clean tech companies that you're aware of are focused on commercial, because commercial is a lot easier in terms of, who you're dealing with, and rinse and repeat. And also it's a more long-term type of customer. What we've proven, because we took that tough road of establishing relationships at the C level of portfolios of real estate investment trusts or asset owners international, are just large independent property owners that have many, many properties. Like, investing in those relationships and time, um, really has paid off for us, because it enables us to just move through their portfolio as we get a few of their buildings and prove it out and expand, and then be there to service the residential tenants, who are more transient, with our services. Now, because of ESG and because of the carbon compliance, being in that mix has been really valuable. It happens to be really good timing now to be in that mix for us, because now they must do something about it for the residents, for their retail tenants, because of the compliance. So it's been, really, really valuable for us. Now, nonetheless, we're out there doing pure play residential. We're doing pure, like, our relationship with Samsung Smart Things, broadcasting that to the, single family home market, or anyone who has a meter. We have relationships with Sustainable West. We have a marketing relationship with Sustainable Westchester, which is a 150,000 member organization in Westchester County of folks who are focused on sustainability, as a direct marketing arm, to pure residential play.
Mm.
We also are doing a lot of commercial now as well, because a lot of our owners own commercial buildings, and like, hey, this is really working well in our multifamily. We really like your engaging platform. We like the communication, the education. We do a lot of training, throughout the year. We could use it in our commercial buildings as well. So we've gone pure play commercial, but all started out of the multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. One last thing I just wanted to differentiate that we do a lot of engineering services as well, beyond the grid services. So we're turnkeying full building thermostats. We're turnkeying smart appliances. And we're also turnkeying EV charging for buildings. Multifamily buildings right now are going through a panic attack right now of of providing parking spaces with EV chargers, because people are walking up the block to the next building if they find out that you don't have enough.
Mm.
And they might not even have an EV yet, but they're thinking about it. But their friend has one, or their parent has one, and they want them to come visit them and be able to charge up if they do. So there's a mad rush going on, and we're turnkeying that. And that's also a differentiator in terms of what we do. We turn your building into a virtual power plant. We've actually created a facility, $110 million facility for owners to tap into so they could get, no money down financing to do these turnkey thermostat projects or turnkey smart appliances, turnkey EV charging in their buildings to electrify, decarbonize, literally do the energy transition in their building at a much faster clip because we could front the money for that.
Hmm.
And
So
big deal.
that's by the way, I like the point about the EV charging. I think it's something that might seem really silly or something simple, but it just gives you an idea that again, the things you would assume that consumers are going to do is not always the case, right? We don't all make logical decisions based off of just the facts, right? There's a lot of emotional things, like you said, the family visiting or whatnot. Um, so one thing you mentioned a couple times here, working with other people, and I think that the partnership space is something I'm really fascinated by. When we look at logical buildings, for example, there's an incentive from the utility to get people to use this, right? So, and they
Yep,
probably have
absolutely.
multiple service providers similar to logical buildings, but I'm assuming there's not terribly many that they offer. So you have essentially a guaranteed client base, right? Because they're probably promoting it, other people are promoting it. So once you have that, you kind of then get access to a certain set of eyeballs, if you will, right? Now, you also have the incentive for the building managers to decarbonize. How does partnerships play a role with you working with other hardware providers, for example, or
Sure.
other service providers to either get I don't know if you have partnership agreements to get a percentage of sale or something to work with other companies to help them grow as well.
Absolutely. And and we grow organically, within our client bases, but we do have partner relationship. One, for example, Comcast. We are Comcast Smart Building Solutions partner. So you go to, they started a new division last year called Smart Solutions that have certain types of experts, whether smart building experts. So on their website, you'll find us to solve smart building, requirements like smart thermostats or the EV charging or the appliances. Um, we're doing that for Comcast. They're offering that out to Comcast Business. They're offering that out to Xfinity Home and Xfinity, multifamily. So that's great for us, great for Comcast because connectivity is one of the prerequisites for obviously for IoT, and more IoT, more smart devices you have in your built space, the greater you can perform. You can be proactive, reactive, you know, 24/7, 365, be able to be on top of your building. We also through that are able to provide non-energy value like monitoring your water, leak detection, indoor air quality. So we're very holistic. I tell people we're logical buildings. We're not logical energy. We're not logical indoor air quality. We're not logical water, but we do all those things because it's all relevant to the building. The energy piece is really important because of the carbon impact, but also the financial impact is quite significant, and everybody's always focused on their bottom line as well. So that's obviously an easier sell, so to speak. So Comcast really valuable partner in our mix. I mentioned Samsung, with our integration with Smart Things, and DR being that provider for them. DR, uh, we have we were awarded through the Department of Energy slash GSA, Government Services Administration, which is the largest owner of buildings in the United States, all the federal buildings. So we have demonstration projects with them underway. It's called their Green Proving Ground. We're in a federal facility in Newark, New Jersey, monitoring their load and providing them prescriptive energy management intel, so to speak, in real time to their facilities management to make the government facility that much more energy efficient. And with the IRA now becoming reality, Inflation Reduction Act, that's going to be really helpful. All the programs that they're putting into place based on what they're learning from the program we're in. We were also they're completing a study that will be released soon. We got to see the first draft, which was great, from the DOE, also for a multifamily project that we worked on in West Harlem, 3333 Broadway, largest multifamily building in North America, 1,200 unit buildings, like all one building, not separate buildings. You can't miss it off the West Side Highway. Highway looks like five buildings glued together. Well, we provided, grid rewards in that building, also our Smart Kit product for the common areas. And here's a building that's like, in West Harlem, it's a disadvantaged community, and enabling folks to participate, empower them with grid rewards and earn money in their environment as well. And we learned, the Department of Energy is doing a whole study that will be released, how, folks in disadvantaged communities can really benefit from this because it didn't take any type of investment of any smart device. Just by the meter was already there by Con Ed. The app's a free download. Is now it's just a matter of providing messaging through the app, and most people, even disadvantaged communities, have access to a smartphone. And we had great results from that are now going to be released from the Department of Energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like huge. So having partners like that, getting that, that measurement verification, that good home housekeeping seal of approval from the government that, hey, that works. They're really reducing energy. They're really reducing the carbon footprint of a home, even in disadvantaged, low, medium income communities. Big deal, very big deal. We see, what we're doing as, certainly diversity, equity, inclusion play, because the meter is it's going to every home, right? And that now makes everyone eligible, everyone, to participate in programs and be compensated at the same dollar equivalent as, I like to say, the 1% of large commercial accounts that were the only ones being compensated until a couple of years ago for participating in the very same programs. So we're very proud as a company that we're now enabling those services in disadvantaged communities where energy takes a much bigger bite out of your disposable income as well. So it's having a really big social impact. We even have within our app, Good Reward users are able to donate their earnings for worthy causes, like We Act as one.
I was actually just thinking about this earlier. I was thinking for some of the people in New York, I don't think they necessarily need the savings. So that's why I was actually going to ask you if you were planning to do something. So you've already thought of it.
Yes, it's in the app. If you have the app, you can see, you can do all the different, the national conservation, for a fund for keeping New York clean water, clean air. We Act, I mentioned, Moms Out Front, like really good. There's the New York Food Bank. There's a lot of like really good causes everybody would want to help with, that you could put your dollars towards for making good energy decisions, making a positive impact on the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh wait, let's see. What do I want to do next? So we're kind of running out of time, but there's a topic I'd like to really ask you about, because logical buildings, if I understand correctly, has been around almost 12 years now. Is that right?
10.
Okay, 10. So around there. So given that it's been around longer than a lot of a lot of climate tech startups, there's a lot of companies that have come out of the woodwork recently, which is good, but they don't quite have as much tenure. I'm really curious to get some insight from you around talent. So obviously, my day job is to work in the talent space, but I'm usually curious to see how leaders of companies manage the growth of the organization from a talent perspective. Oftentimes, there's maybe downturns, and you have to kind of reset the culture, or kind of you lose some people and you have to rehire. Can you just talk broadly speaking about your experience and your advice to other founders as they go on to become more tenured companies in the climate space?
Yeah, I mean, we're really passionate about what we do. We know we're making a difference in the environment. We are really innovative. We've introduced new product that never existed before. So when you have like, that type of those ingredients that are really attractive for top talent, you get really good people to climb aboard. We have a great intern program as well, and our interns like really shine. Um, and so, and again, it's because of the passion we have, the innovation we have, the proof in the pudding, so to speak. So we're really doing it. People talk about like what they like to do, or they find, start like, we want to do. We do it, and but we continue to be innovative. We continue to like just be out of the box, and like why we continue to ask why not. Why can't we do that? And we like putting all our people in the field. Whoever joins our company, we put them in the field. We have them walk buildings with our engineers, because it's really what we find is that it's people who are not engineers, and when they go into a building and they see how it operates, and they're amazed, like, really, that's how, like, that's how the water's being pumped, that's how, the air is being ventilated, that's how the waste is being managed. That's how they're calibrating use of water and use of electric and gas. And it gets them to think of, innovative ways to make that more efficient and effective as well. So we're very much, embracing of our folks, and right from the get go of hearing what they have to say as well. And we're very transparent with that. So, yeah, that type of environment has been really successful for us.
Have you ever had any specific challenges with talent where there was like, okay, we've become an attractive company, so now we've got a lot of people who want to come work for us, and then some of those people maybe I know you don't want to speak maybe anything negative about the talent, but has there ever been a time where you really like made a mistake or learned something? Because I do think maybe it's just my bias towards it, but I think talent is extremely important. And I also know that there's probably going to be a lot of mistakes made by founders in the next years as their companies grow and continue to
Yeah,
expand.
yeah. I mean, look, I mean, we really hit our hockey stick, inflection point in the past, like, 18 months.
Hmm.
Like, we doubled in size. We brought on, say 18 months ago, we're about 15 people. Now we're 40 people. So I think we were like really still new in that space to be able to answer that. I think the worst thing that's happened to us is that, we had someone who was really super special, but didn't want to be a business development person, and want to be a policy wonk, and got a great offer, in the policy political side of the world, which, what, that's great, and we think it's fantastic. Gives us a really good relationship in some high offices too. So, that's okay, because we actually are proud for the career development of our people as well. And with their experience with us, open the door
Yeah.
that they could be the next, energy secretary, the United States. That's great. So yeah, that's how it's been for us.
No, I really like that. I like that answer. It's a lot of people are very salty when people leave the company, but I think that it's uh it's arrogant on the part of the manager and the company, right? To
Yeah,
to be that way. Because it's like, they're unless they helped found the company, and even if they did help found the company, maybe they have aspirations beyond that. And it's important to be understanding of that. Um,
yeah, yeah. We're very much in career development, and we know that that could develop into broader careers, and we support that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got time for one more that I think we can go into, which is given you've seen kind of the development of, let's call it the smart grid space or the smart building space, as new things are being solved, new challenges are being solved, new problems being solved, what are you excited for next? What do you think is going to be a big challenge to solve coming up? Something that other people who are looking to start companies might be interested in pursuing, maybe something you guys are pursuing. I'm always curious about what's next to really like clean up the leftovers essentially as we continue to solve the really, really major challenges with climate change.
Yeah, well, there's certainly this collision course of supply and demand on the horizon. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of, thought out policy to decommission coal plants, natural gas plants, nuclear plants. The natural gas plants, the coal plants, especially natural gas plants, provide a lot of flexibility of load management, right? So what's going to replace that, right? Um, there's a lot of transmission projects to bring hydro down from, say, Canada into New York, as an example. But if those projects or having offshore wind, but if those projects don't really happen, those are really big capital intensive projects. The plants, the fossil fuel plants, are being decommissioned. It's happening. For example, Indian Point nuclear plant is no longer operational. That was 25% of the base load of New York City. That was 2,500 megawatts. For a typical base load, well, typical load on a given day in New York is 8,000 megawatts. Well, Indian Point was supplying a nice, reliable 2,500. Well, that's gone. Okay. And, and in the state of New York, there's a lot. So there's like some reliability issues on the horizon in that the demand on the supply side. Now, on the demand side, it's getting bigger because we're electrifying. We want to electrify our mobility with cars, and it's happening a lot faster, I can tell you, than anyone anticipated. The showmanship, the coolness of like Tesla's, and now there's many more companies coming out, whether foreign or domestic, and people are buying into it and they love it, right? Well, that takes 4 Teslas could be 100 kW if they're all charging at the same time. That's like a building load of like a 15-story building. Okay. So imagine
Wow.
40 Teslas. Yeah. So that's a big conundrum for the market of the electrification of mobility, the electrification of heat. There's mandates, being tossed around in New York that, no more natural gas. We got to cut the pipeline, like cut the cord of natural gas and go electric heat. Electrifying heat, I mean, that's a huge demand, so huge. So, the CEO, president of NYSERDA, named Doreen Harris, she recently spoke at a function that I was at. I was on a panel. She was a keynote speaker, and she's mentioning that like New York's going to have to, increase their, capacity to fulfill demand that's double where it is right now over like the next 10 years.
That's crazy.
Right. So we're at right now a rough capacity demand of 30 megawatts. It's going to go, if the policies that New York is going after would be 60 megawatts. We're only at 30, but we're also, retiring a lot of, fossil fuel generation that's reliable and that's flexible. What's going to happen? Something's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, also there's the issue of the transmission, right? I'm assuming that there's like lots of small transmission inside of New York that if you double it, I can assume there's going to be some issues on the transmission issues.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on that stuff,
No,
but
no,
that's
no.
what my basic
You're
understanding.
hitting
Yeah.
it. It's the, it's a big issue. Transmission is a huge part of the electrical equation, and if that's not in place, all bets off on reliability. So what's next is ensuring that having reliable power on site. So behind the meter batteries. Okay, that's what we see. There's gonna be much more development. It already exists, first of all, and there's a lot of companies like LG. They're coming out with home electrification systems for residential homes that are going to be much more demand because of these reliability issues. I don't want to, have to rely on the grid completely. If I have if I have an EV vehicle, I want to be able to, not also pay all those costs of demand, peak demand charges. I'm gonna need a battery in my home that could take power at nighttime when it's cheaper. There is time of use tariffs now that exists that you could actually, save money charging up your battery at nighttime than using that power either for your EV or for your home. And better yet, if you happen to be in a place you could have solar on your home, well, now I'm getting a renewable, resource, the sun, to, capture that energy on my battery. So
Hmm.
all these things are now available. The costs every year go down. The incentives have only got up. There's tax investment credits now offered by, the IRA, codified for EV charging, battery, and solar, all three. even for electric heat pumps. There's incentives for that. So what we see next is a lot more electrification, a lot more behind the meter battery storage, a lot more smart appliances because they're going to use less electricity. They're also going to be able to enable homeowners to be the power plant, the virtual power plant that they're going to earn grid rewards, dollars from the grid because they're equipped with these smart devices that they use energy at the precise time they need it, or they're able to shift that load, use their battery, so the grid is more reliable for what it has left, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
That's what's next.
Yeah, that's a
Mm.
tall order. That's a tough one. But I think that there's probably, I can think of off the top of my head, some ways that non-sciencey entrepreneurs can make a difference. That's always what I'm looking for. Is like,
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
some non-science businesses that could be set up by people who don't have a PhD in chemistry, you know?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's all being consumerized. You walk if you go into like a Home Depot or Lowe's, whatever. And if you look at the smart appliance section of whether it's LG or Samsung now, GE, they all have it. The price point is competitive to the conventional appliances. So the appliances are there. Many states, the meters there now that enable you to be eligible. The next piece that's coming into play that it's kind of there, but it's only going to get better is a battery. And that's going to really, because keep in mind, electricity is it's on demand. Like you can't store, like in a big commercial way you can't store it, but you can at the home with a small battery,
Mm-hmm.
and the size of a refrigerator that can provide you that load shift capability for say 8, 10, 12 hours,
Yeah.
and create a lot of value day in day out. So
Yeah, and if it's automated in a way that it can essentially pay for itself, you can then get also the barriers to entry lower. Yep,
and
exactly.
exactly, so that's
Yeah,
only gonna get better. So that's the way I say it, that's like the next.
yeah, very good. Well, I we're out of time now, but this has been really good. I appreciate you coming on. Any final calls to action or where people can reach you?
Sure. I mean, go to our website, logicalbuildings.com. Better yet, go to gridrewards.com if you're in New York, Texas, or California. Join that revolution. Empower yourself to see what you're using, earn money, save money, know what your carbon footprint is, and just make a meaningful impact on your community.
Yeah, I will say the feature to see if you're using renewables or more dirty energy is actually really really cool. I'm a very visual person, so it's really helpful to like see. Oh my gosh, like that's what I'm doing. I'm definitely gonna make sure I turn the AC off or wash my dishes later or something like that. So,
And,
um,
and the
but
last,
yeah,
yeah, the last plug I would say, if you're an owner operator listening in, hey, we have a $110 million facility to help you decarbonize and transition your building to be more efficient as well.
very good. Is that specifically for New York or is that also across those other three,
And
all
it
three markets?
is currently specific to New York.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Definitely excited that we can share this. So thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate it, Silas. Have a good one.